Have you ever seen Japan and England in the same room? I didn't think so. This may seem pretty unbelievable at first, but hold your horses and stay with me for 1 second. Just hear me out before you disagree, because I have some overwhelming evidence that Japan and England are in fact the same country. So here's 5 similarities between the two. Let's go! First of all, politeness. So when you think about it, both England and Japan are super polite. Politeness seems to be ingrained in both cultures. So as far as England's concerned, the way that I grew up, it was always super important to say please and thank yous. And from a very young age, I think that's taught to everyone in England. And it's pretty apparent when I went to Japan that every Japanese person says sumimasen. Like, if you don't hear sumimasen and arigatou gozaimasu when you go over there, like, you're not in Japan, right? It's used at every possible moment. It's a really versatile phrase, and I think it just shows how important politeness is to Japanese people in general. So in that regard, I think Japan and England are quite similar in that way. And you best believe in England, when someone asks me for a favour, I'm the first person to remind them, like, to say please and thank you. So if someone comes up to me, like at work say, and they ask, give me that, pass me that, and if they just order me to do something or request me to do something without adding please and thank you, I'm the first to go, please. Like, say please and thank you. Just to remind them, like, how are you raised? To me as an individual, it's pretty important to say that, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to do so. And in Japan, I think they say sumimasen as an excuse me if you're passing through somewhere, if the sumimasen if you need something, if you need help with something. Just a few examples. In England, we would say excuse me, of course. As I've already said, we would say pardon me, please, thank you. And obviously if we have to complain about something, we would phrase it in a certain way not to offend the other person. I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm sorry for bringing this up, but excuse me, maybe you can help me, I think blah blah blah. You wouldn't just go straight in, direct, and ask the favor or complain or say something that might offend someone. You would phrase it in a certain way is to not hurt their feelings. I think Japan is also quite like that as well. Japan are very indirect with what they say, out of politeness and out of respect for the other person. Also, I think to avoid confrontation. I think both cultures hate confrontation as far as I'm aware. I definitely don't like confrontation. And in England, there's also certain table manners. You would eat things in a certain way, in a certain order. I think this is more common in more formal settings, like, and not a lot of people follow strict etiquette rules where eating's concerned in England, as far as I'm aware. But there are definitely certain rules where eating with certain cutleries first, like we have different size spoons and different size forks for different dishes. I guess that's kind of a politeness in the etiquette politeness category. In England, it's also very common to open the door for people. We're quite chivalrous in that respect, in that regard. It's almost expected for people to open the door if you're going in or out, and that person's there first. You would do that out of respect. Or if you're opening a taxi door, the person will open it for you. If you go to sit down, I'm not sure this happens so regularly, but maybe on a date it would happen more often. The guy would pull out your chair so you can sit down, and then he would push you in. I don't think that is the same in Japan. I mean, if you grew up in Japan, maybe you have certain levels of etiquette where that's concerned, but in Britain it's very important to be chivalrous and kind, and if you're in a relationship, it's common that your partner will hold your bag for you. So we definitely have certain things like that in place. In Japan, there's phrases like shitsureishimasu, which I believe is excuse me, or excuse me for intruding, or otsukare-sama deshita. You also have ojamashimashita. When you enter someone's house, like, please excuse me for intruding in your home. Thank you for inviting me in, so to speak. There's also a phrase in Japanese when you leave the workplace earlier than others, and as a way of apologizing, you would say osaki ni shitsurei shimasu. So again, Japan has a lot of different phrases, a lot of polite phrases, and of course they also have the itadakimasu, gochishou deshita before and after eating, which is a form of politeness and thank you for the food and appreciative and showing gratitude. In England, it is a little bit different. I'm sure we do have certain politeness and certain etiquettes that we follow. I think when we first meet someone, it's more likely that we used to shake each other's hand as a way of greeting, which I know that is quite different in Japan. You would never do that in Japan, I don't believe. Some people even kiss on the cheek, which I have never done, and I would never kiss someone I don't really know, not even family or friends, I don't think. No. I think in England it is more common to hug people that you know, that you're close with. In Japan, I'm not too sure how they are with that. I know they're not very touchy-feely. So yeah, we have that in common. Next one, reserved and private. So I've noticed in general, Japanese people tend to be more on the reserved side. They keep their emotions close to their chest. They don't really say how they feel at the time. If they're offended by something, they don't outright say it directly to you that they're offended. Like a lot of the time, I've not lived in Japan for a long time, so I can't say with 100% certainty, but from the things I've read and the way that I've seen them as I've traveled as a foreigner in Japan, I've noticed that they are quite private people. English people may seem more open in comparison to Japanese people, whereas feelings and emotions and thoughts are concerned. But in actuality, I think we're both similar in the fact that we're quite private people. In England, we call it the stiff upper lip. We don't always say exactly what's on our minds. In England, we do say, how are you? Like, that is the very common phrase. It's very normal to say, how are you at the start of the day when you're first meeting someone. Whereas in Japan, I guess they would say like, otsukare-sama, or ohayo, hisashiburi. Like, in England, it's very common to go, how are you? How's your day been? Like, how's things going? But we almost always say, it's fine, I'm fine, thank you, how are you? But do we mean it? Not always. Like, but it's just common knowledge that that's the polite thing and the proper thing to do, proper thing to say. So even if we do have a inner turmoil or something that's going on inwardly, we don't always bring it forth. We don't always bring it into the conversation, because that would be too revealing, like, of how we feel, unless you really, really know the person. So I definitely think we have that in common. We're quite private people, and we also people please a lot. We like to keep others happy, and we sometimes prioritize that over ourselves sometimes. I think it would be good for both cultures to be able to express fully how we feel more often, but I do get why we keep it, why we hold it in to a certain extent. Like, you're not going to just pour out your innermost turmoil to strangers on the street, are you? Like, or even to close friends and family. It's polite to ask how they are, and if someone was generally going through something, I would definitely want to know the answer. It's not that I'm asking just for them to lie to me, but I understand that they can't always be 100% honest with how they're feeling with me if they don't know me on that deeper level. So I think both cultures are guilty of the I'm fine, I'm okay, or the daijoubu. So we definitely have that in common. I think where the stiff upper lip thing, the quote, is concerned, where Brits are concerned, it's a little bit misguided. I think a lot of British people, a lot of people in England, I'm from England, so I'm speaking today from English point of view. I think we can be emotional, sensitive, expressive people. I think it is quite a stereotype that we are reserved. Like, I think we are quite friendly. If you're waiting for the bus and you're next to like an elderly person, for example, it's quite common for you to just spark up a conversation out of nowhere and be polite and say, oh, how's the weather's nice, isn't it? Or how has your day been? Or like just simple things like that. Like, just because we have a stiff upper lip doesn't mean that we're cold in any way. I think that can be a misconception with Japan and England, that we're cold and reserved and we're lying about how we feel. We are quite private in the fact that we're not always so direct with what we say. I think Lucas also tells me off a lot for that, because I'm not direct in the things that I say. The way I was raised is a little bit different to the way he was. I think if I feel a certain way, I won't always outright say it. And I mean, look at Japanese people, they're so expressive. I mean, just from watching shows like Teddy's House, like the reality show, for example, I've seen a lot of Japanese people cry on that show and get emotional and be quite sensitive and quite vulnerable in certain circumstances. So I think it's wrong to stereotype us all into the one category and think we're cold or we're super reserved all the time. But I think we are definitely similar in that fact that we do keep certain things close to our chest and we don't always say things super directly. Queuing. So it's not to say that British people or people in the UK, England, like queuing.
Listen to me, I'm British. I know how to queue.
I think it's quite on the contrary, if I'm honest. Like, I definitely don't like queuing. But it's something the majority of people respect. And if someone jumps the line, there's definitely at least one person in that queue that's going to pull them up on it and say, excuse me, I was here first. Like, it's not uncommon for that to happen. It might be slightly different in Japan. I think that would happen less, maybe, queue skipping or queue jumping. But in both cultures, it is definitely important to respect queuing and respect that if I was here first, then I get seen first. It's just the order of things. It's just the way it is. I actually don't know how Japanese people feel fully about queuing. I've never really heard them speak about it. I've heard a lot of British people talk about queuing and the fact that they really don't actually enjoy it. But it's something that we're known for in somehow. Like, we're really known for queuing. I don't know why. I think it just makes sense to queue. It just gives more structure, more organization. So there's that. But I definitely think we're similar in that regard. Drinking culture. So when I went to Japan with Lucas, it was pretty obvious how much Japan love alcohol and love drinking. It's deeply embedded in Japanese culture to drink. Izakayas, really popular over there. Like, you see them everywhere. I saw a lot of posters with alcohol on, like Suntory whiskey, like everywhere. That was really cool to see. I think in England, you'd more likely see a lot of desserts and a lot of sweet things on advertisements, but we definitely do love alcohol. Maybe as much as Japan, I don't know. It's not uncommon to see pubs every street. Anywhere you walk in England, you'll see a pub on every corner. We're kind of obsessed. So if you come to England, you definitely got to visit a pub or two when you're here. It's just part of the culture, so how can you not? Unless you don't drink, then maybe give it a miss. But we both definitely love a good alcoholic beverage or two. A little trivia for you, actually. Around 71.2 adults in the UK consume alcohol at least once a week. I don't really know how different Japan is where statistics are concerned. I think I definitely drink at least once a week. I would definitely be included in that statistic. I probably shouldn't be. I think I'm actually wanting to cut down maybe. But when I was in Japan, I think me and Lucas drank every day. Every day. That actually might sound a little shocking to some people, but the alcohol in Japan is just so good. Like, I love sours and highballs and namabiru. Namabiru onegaishimasu. Okawari kudasai. Wine onegaishimasu. Biru kudasai. Namabiru hitotsu onegaishimasu. Kanpai! I just love alcohol in Japan, and I definitely felt right at home. Last but not least, tea. So you might have guessed that we both love tea. I mean, what's not to love? In Britain, we have breakfast tea, licorice tea, fruit tea, herbal tea. Did I say breakfast tea? I think I did. Milk tea, green tea, bubble tea. Bubble tea's been trending of late. It's been really trending. As far as I'm aware, Japan also loves a lot of bubble tea, and I definitely know they love their green tea out there. I'm not so sure about fruit tea. Maybe you can clarify that in the comments if Japan has fruit tea, if it's quite popular over there. I didn't really see it that much. I saw a lot more green tea whilst I was out in Japan, but I know both cultures equally love their tea, and Britain's definitely known for their tea culture. We love a good British cuppa. I think a lot of British people would drink at least like how many a day? Am I gonna lie to you? Like, I swear some people drink about like 5 cups of tea a day, and maybe more, maybe 10. I'm definitely not one of those. I love my tea, but I'm not that obsessive with tea. I think I would probably drink about 2 to 3 cups of tea a day. And a lot of British people actually add sugar to their tea as well, so that's a lot of sugar. I made sure to wean myself off of the sugars in tea as I got older, but both Japanese people and English people can attest to loving tea and drinking it on a regular basis. So that's another similarity we have. So what's your verdict? Do you agree with my list? Are we similar in some ways? And can you think of any more similarities between Japan and England or Japan and the UK? If you do, comment them down below. I think I could definitely name a few more similarities, and I might have to make a part 2 to this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like this, please like and subscribe. It really does help the channel a lot, and it helps us make more content like this. Mite kurete arigato. Bye bye! I've seen a lot of Japanese people... Okay, is it recording? I don't know. I think it just makes sense to queue if... So this may seem pretty unbelievable. So this may seem a little... Oh, I don't know. So this may... Dude. Lucas, can you be quiet? Can I do this? I don't know.